You'll get caught." Her voice scared me. I was sitting at the bar drinking, doing the usual preparations for a Friday night with the girls. There were 5 of us that evening. There was also a 6th, but she had already found who she was looking for even before we arrived at the club, a tall, blonde man who radiated sex appeal. We all knew we wouldn't see her until Monday morning at the office. Turning slightly to the left, I saw an attractive and well-dressed elderly woman. The word elegant immediately came to mind. Her black dress was sexy but not cloying, her jewelry expensive but not ostentatious. The woman's blonde hair was styled in a style that suited her face and age, an attractive pixie cut that made her look younger. True, it was difficult for me to determine her age. It didn't look like she was doing anything to herself, but the laugh lines on her face were one of the few signs of a life lived. I hoped that at her age I would look at least half as good, and with a high degree of probability I guessed that she was somewhere around 50. What I couldn't figure out was what the hell she wanted from me. "Sorry?" I didn't try to hide the irritation in my voice. I said, "You will get caught. I've been watching your friends since they walked through the door, getting ready for the big night. Yes, Wait, what? Have you been watching us? And for what? And anyway, who are you?" She chuckled. "My name is Amanda, and you know perfectly well what I mean. Are you and your friends going to the club? Maybe. And here you all are, first to drink a little for courage. So far I'm right, huh? What's your name, dear?" "Aaron." "And yes. What are you supposed to be, some kind of psychic?" Amanda laughed, a pleasant, if slightly arrogant laugh. "No, not at all. Just someone who's already been in your shoes or something like that." The bartender placed my drink in front of me. I tipped him generously, as I usually did on nights like this. He had to endure women like my friends all night, and he deserved it. I looked at Amanda as I took a sip. Although I was already inclined to return to my girlfriends, this was one of the most interesting conversations I had had in a long time. It was much more interesting than listening to Darlene and Cindy try to outdo each other. "About? And where is it?" She smiled, but the smile was more predatory than friendly. "You are planning to cheat on your husband." I hissed. "No, how dare you? I love my husband." The smile became a little sadder, and the tone became pacifying. "I don't blame you, Aaron. I'm trying to help. And I didn't say that you don't love your husband. I believe you. I loved it too. But she still cheated on him. Well, I'm not going to change mine. Fuck you! You do not even know me! You don't know any of us!" I started to move, but Amanda put her hand on my wrist. However, she didn't grab me, she just touched me lightly. "Please, stop. Just listen. When your group arrived, there were 6 of you. One, with a ring, had already left with the guy to the screams and applause of the rest of your group. 2 of the remaining girls, including you, also wear rings. 3, no. If you guess, one of them is married and just took off the ring, and 1 or 2 others are divorced. I stopped in my tracks. Who are you? Detective? Are you following us? Who the hell? No, I'm just a woman, as I already said, who was where you are now. I once had friends like this, and over the years, I have seen groups like yours dozens of times. Perhaps you haven't changed yet. In fact, I would bet that it hasn't yet. There are..." She waved her free hand. "Hints. The way you constantly look at your ring, your facial expression when your married friends speak, from how heatedly they communicate. I'm guessing it's about how they plan to get laid, or how hubby will never find out." I turned away, feeling awkward. "Like I said, darling, I don't judge." "Not really." Without turning around, I asked, "Not really? What does it mean?" "Everyone changes for a reason. Some are good and some are bad, but at the moment it can be difficult to know which is which." She moved slightly so that she was completely in my field of vision. "I'm trying to help you, Aaron." I snorted and asked, "How exactly to help? Tell me not to cheat?" Darlene says, "Your married friend? Slutty cheater?" "Yes." She says it didn't hurt her marriage at all. What he doesn't know won't hurt him. And I was interrupted by Amanda's loud, condescending laugh. Oh no, my dear, this is certainly true. But I guarantee you that her husband will find out about it. Your divorced friend, what's her name? I found out, didn't I? Cindy. I said it quietly, but then I caught myself. But she knows exactly how she screwed up. She says that she knows what she did wrong and can make sure none of you get caught. And in any case, everything ends well for her. Right? I stared at her silently. Like I said, Aaron, I've seen a lot of bands like yours, and although I haven't always seen the consequences, I know that what they do, and what they intend to make you do, will end with one of your group getting caught, and then it will end with all of you getting caught. 3 can keep a secret if 2 are dead, and there are 6 of you. And that's not even counting the fact that one of them hopes that you will fall, so that your husband will fall with you, and then she can catch him again. Or maybe he is already cheating on you, and this is revenge? I growled. Stan is not like that, she asked in a calm voice. And you? I don't. Her hand gently squeezed my wrist. People cheat for different reasons, Aaron. Out of boredom, or anger, or revenge, or misfortune. Because they want to leave. Because they want to get caught. Because they think they need a thrill. Why are you planning? I'm not going to, Amanda shook her head. How long before you have to go with your girlfriends to dancing, I assume? Well, maybe in an hour. And have you already cheated on your husband? I looked at my feet. Me not. Dancing a little too close when she was drunk. I let one of them kiss me, they groped me, but I stopped him. But nothing more. Her finger touched my chin and lifted it up. But were you planning to go tonight? Maybe. That's it. Darlene and Cindy talk about it so harmlessly, like it's just another, like it has nothing to do with him and me, like going to the spa or the gym, but he won't understand it because, for your pride. What if, Amanda finished her sentence with a sigh. If he really loves you, he will allow you to do this. Shaking her head, she said, Idiots. Hey, not you, Aaron. Well, maybe, but at least you're not as stupid as them. You haven't done anything irreversible yet. There is still time for you. Laughing, I said, Oh, so the repentant traitor is trying to keep me from breaking my oath. You broke yours and it ruined your marriage, so now you're helping young women not fall like you did? The grin on Amanda's face seemed almost demonic in its glee. Oh, no, no way. That is, perhaps, but I cheated on my husband hundreds of times in 23 years of marriage. I would probably still be cheating on him if my beloved Donald had not passed away. And not once did I get caught. And this is how I will help you, Aaron. If you want to cheat, I will teach you everything I can. And if you follow in my footsteps, you will never get caught, unless due to exceptional bad luck. What? Amanda picked up her purse from the stool next to her. There's a late-night diner across the street. I want to drink coffee and maybe have a light snack. If you'll join me, after you've told your friends you'll be back in about an hour, I'll tell you my story. In it, you will learn everything you need to successfully conduct as many affairs as you want. Are you serious? Oh, quite. A magician never reveals his tricks, but perhaps it's time for me to take on an apprentice. She saw that I was still hesitating. Look, I'm not asking you to get in the car with me. We'll go to a public place, drink coffee, eat French fries, which I'll pay for, and talk. Then, when we're done, you can do whatever you want with what you learn. At worst, you can tell your friends about the crazy woman you met tonight. She said the last part, with a self-deprecating grin. Amanda turned to leave. I'll go there anyway. There's no crowd here this early, and your friend left with the only guy I had my eye on. If you come, great. If not, well, I guess I'll have to spend a little more time walking up the stairs because I'm definitely going to finish this basket of potatoes. And with these words, she left. What the hell just happened? On the one hand, she is right. Everything the girls did was risky. I understand this. It probably takes someone who actually knows what they're doing to make me listen to what I've already been telling myself. I wasn't even sure what I wanted to change. My behavior in the last couple of weeks suggests otherwise. I really love Stan very much. My growing desire to have sex with other guys doesn't change that, at least for me. In the end, I'm sure that he fantasizes about other women, and I didn't go further than fantasizing. At least that's what Darlene and Cindy and the others told me. Although deep down, I knew I'd be damn pissed if I caught Stan doing the same thing to another woman that I was doing. But if I decided to pull the trigger, why wouldn't I want to become a good specialist? If Amanda is telling the truth, and she's gotten away with it for 2 decades and hundreds of guys, and her husband has no idea about it, why wouldn't I want to hear what she has to say? And if she was lying, then, as she said, it would make a funny story later. I told the girls that I wanted to get some fresh air before we hit the road, and that I would be back soon. They were already intoxicated, so Darlene simply shouted, "You better come back before we leave without you, and take all the best." Then they went back to a group game of marry, have sex, kill, this time about the guys in the office. Yes, I definitely need to get a different point of view before one of these idiots gets me fired and also divorced. The diner was one of those places where the entrance in big neon letters just said dinner without a name. It could have been built at any time since the 40s, and its furnishings reflected this. There was a strange, timeless atmosphere about it. Everything, tables, chairs, bar counter, etc., seemed cheap but damn durable. After nights of dancing, the girls and I ended up here more than once, those who didn't get laid, that is. The food wasn't great, but it was cheap, greasy, and plentiful. When I walked in, Amanda was looking off into the distance, her hands wrapped around her mug. When I approached the table, she looked up from her reverie and smiled widely. "Hello? I didn't know whether you would come or not. Glad you came." I sat down on the chair in the booth opposite her. Maybe I should get my head examined, but I think it should be more interesting than listening to Darlene and the girls work themselves out for the rest of the evening. She laughed. "I don't think this is a very high bar." I shrugged. "And that's true. But if you can tell me what you say, you can—" The older woman nodded, perhaps a little wistfully. "I can, but— I'm sorry, could you tell me about yourself first? Not your whole life story, but what you do for a living, how long you've been married, and the like. I want to make sure that what I have to tell you, well, I think it's all interesting, but I want to make sure that it will be useful for you too. I don't want to waste your time or my time." "Fine. I'm 27. I met my husband at the end of my junior year in college. I majored in history, but then decided I didn't want to teach. So now I'm an administrative assistant. Stan and I started dating exclusively at the beginning of our senior year. We've been married for a little over 5 years. Is this marriage happy? In general, I mean." I nodded slowly. Yes, I would say yes. I have no complaints. He makes me happy. For the most part. Well, I mean, I would like him to clean up his socks instead of throwing them on the bed at night, and he would like me to stop watching so much reality TV. Amanda giggled. "Quite fair. What about your sex life?" I felt myself blush slightly. She's good." "Is she good?" She raised an eyebrow. "Yes. Most of the time it is excellent, although not as good as in the beginning. You know how it happens. At first it was an impulse. Now we seem to be getting used to married life. We're talking about children. But he's still—" I giggled. "He still more than gets the job done. And he tells me that I'm the best he's ever had, which is very nice. Is it true? And he is the best you've ever had, I think." Sort of like that. Now, yes. Or I think even 2 or 3 years ago he was the best. I had more experience than him and had to teach him what I liked, but he learned it well. When it got to this point, yes. But like I said, lately things have gotten a little— stale? There's that damned raised eyebrow again. No, I wouldn't go that far. I searched for the right word for a minute, then found it. Comfortable, I guess. I love him, and it's still good. But I can't remember the last time we did something new in bed. Amanda nodded. Okay, no special complaints, happy marriage. It would be nice if the sex was better. So, why are you thinking about cheating on Stan? Luckily, before I could respond, the waitress brought out the fries and poured me a cup of coffee. I took this time to think about how to phrase my answer. I didn't come here for her to roast me, but for her to tell me everything. No. I mean, yes, I expose myself to temptation, but never. I don't want to cheat on him. I don't go on a date with them thinking I'll find myself a boyfriend and have sex with him today. I miss the excitement. A fried potato went into my mouth, followed quickly by water when I realized it was too hot. What is it like in single life? She took a sip of coffee, the faint outline of lipstick remaining on the rim of the cup. I fanned my mouth with my palm. Yes, probably about the fact that you are free and desirable. It's not that I wanted to cheat on Stan, but when we started talking about kids and buying a house I sighed. I'm just wondering if I got married too early. Shouldn't I have played in the field longer? To understand if there is someone better there? No. I deftly dragged the next potato through the ketchup and this time let it cool. No, I love him. I really do. He's such a good guy and I want to spend the rest of my life with him. And I sure as hell don't want to hurt him. But, I don't know, I just feel like... I chewed the ketchup-soaked potato thinking. Amanda looked at me expectantly until I finished. I wish there was some way to end my marriage and get back to him, you know? Not hurting Stan and not... If I could do that without cheating, that would be perfect. This is exactly what I did. At least, a little. But, I shrugged. Her gaze cut through all my delirium. But the temptation to change is becoming stronger, especially considering the company you are in. Yes, I hate to say it, but yes, I don't want to, but I know. I know that I'm still wanted. There are many opportunities in the club to go further with the guys, but I didn't do it. My gaze moved to my hands, and I like that feeling of being wanted, so I come back. But I worry that in the end, being wanted won't be enough. She smiled tenderly and put her hand on mine. I understand. Believe me, I understand everything, and I think I can help you. I raised my head again. Change? I don't know. Amanda patted my hand and put hers away again, leaning back in her booth. Not necessary. I'll tell you my story. I'll tell you why I did it and how I got away with it. And if you need details, I will stay here and talk to you as much as you want. It's so rare for me to tell someone my secrets, and you seem like the perfect candidate. She laughed when she saw the expression on my face. I'm not saying that you will cheat, or that you have the mark of the beast, or whatever it is you're afraid of. She took a bite of French fries and spoke to him in her mouth. How the hell does she manage to speak so elegantly with her mouth full? You are young, beautiful, and smart enough to understand that what you are doing now is not working. By that I mean what's going on in your marriage and in your friendship with Darlene, right? And Cindy? I nodded. You have a longing that you cannot define, and it leads you in the direction where you may or may not want to go. And Amanda sighed a little sadly. To be honest, you don't have children, and your marriage doesn't last that long. You have more power to change course than you think. I don't want to sound gloomy, but leaving the marriage is an option that... Well, I didn't have the courage for that. One more bite and a lighter mood. But let's not worry about that for now. Still want to hear my story? I nodded. It can't hurt to listen, right? Yes, I want to. The elderly woman gave me a radiant smile. I had no doubt that a story awaited me. Then I'll start from the very beginning. Well, maybe a little later. You don't need to hear about my early days except that my home life was very ordinary, average in almost every way. Middle class, middle America, average happiness. If my parents could have 2.5 children, they probably would have done so. But I was not an ordinary girl. I grew from a stupid, big-headed child into a clumsy, ugly duckling. Although she was always smart, even too smart for my own good. I was a well-read and sharp-tongued little girl. Then, in my senior year, I changed. The ugly duckling turned into a swan, and it's not just about looks, although puberty has finally bestowed bountiful gifts on me. No, it was my intellect that allowed me to truly flourish. An expensive gift is just a nice thing without proper packaging. But packaged correctly, presented with only tantalizing and enticing glimpses that hint at what lies within, this is where desire comes into play. Think about it. At Christmas, a child opens his gifts, plays with his toys for a few hours, maybe a day or two, and then puts them aside. And in a month, while they are lying under the tree, how often do they shake them, poke their fingers at them, try to guess by size, shape, and weight what lies inside? A month of delightful anticipation, followed by several hours of rapturous pleasure. Which of these is more interesting in retrospect? I nodded again, although I must admit I was still a little disappointed. So, you understand how to present yourself. You became beautiful and then studied makeup and fashion, right? She laughed. I know it doesn't sound very good, but you have to understand. Let me ask, have you always been the gorgeous young woman who now sits across from me? I blushed. I don't know if I would have gone that far, but I've never been ugly. I guess I was going through a bit of an awkward period. But you don't know what it's like to be invisible or even repulsive to your peers, and then suddenly become an object of desire for one half and contempt for the other. No, not really. Amanda put the fried potatoes into her mouth, apparently enjoying the taste as much as the story. And I had it. And then I found my first and longest love, to be desired. For me, this is what has always been there, this impulse to be desired. Sex is fun, but it's like opening a present at Christmas, the culmination of an experience, a burst of joy that justifies the melancholy. I took a sip of water. Okay, yes, I understand that. But it doesn't explain. Hold your horses, student. I'm just setting the stage. She giggled. I create a wish if you want. So I started dating my senior year, lost my virginity at prom, after half a dozen of the hottest guys in school asked me to it, and then went off to college. It was there that I first tried being monogamous, and failed. Amanda sighed, the energy that had animated her seeming to dissipate as the breath left her lips. Then I offended several good young people, and ruined her reputation. There was one boy who I know loved me very much, and I loved him too. True, I loved it very much, but She took a sip of Coca-Cola, seemingly lost in thought. This was the first time I saw her showman mask slip that evening. The love of my life was my husband, but I think that Jeremy could have become him if I had not treated him so cruelly. I don't even... The elderly woman smiled bitterly. I wasn't good at cheating back then. More precisely, it was completely bad. Jeremy didn't catch me, and he didn't need to. He just needed to not be completely blind, and he wasn't. Why did you cheat on him? Amanda looked at the table. That's the question, isn't it? Why did I cheat on him and my husband and all the other wonderful men in between? When she looked up at me again, there was pain behind her eyes and in the tight smile on her lips. Amanda sighed. I'm getting ahead of myself. Taking a deep breath, she continued. Addiction lies in the fact that you don't want to believe that it is an addiction. Nobody wants to. It doesn't matter if it's drinking, eating, or gambling. The excuses are different, but they are each other's cousins. The just one drink excuse is very close to, I was just dancing with him. A non-addict might drink a beer or dance a little too closely, and that would be the end of it, at least if nothing else happens. But for an addict, this means that a person is opening himself up to disaster. And then when a disaster happens, we resort to rationalization. I had a hard day, so I drank a bottle of vodka. It's my birthday, and I can eat as much cake as I want. Amanda's face distorted into a grimace. Our relationship should have ended already. I just haven't told him about it yet. All ways to justify excesses that we don't want to admit are excesses. She smiled brightly as she walked back to center stage. I didn't know then that it was an addiction. I thought I was just depraved, tossed between intentional loneliness and certainty, absolute certainty that this time it would be different, that this time I had found the perfect guy, and that what I had before was stupid college girl crap. Eventually, I stopped pretending and decided that I was fundamentally damaged, although I had not yet realized that it was an addiction, and decided that I would remain single. This continued until I was 28. Amanda's smile then was not in any way ostentatious. She was blissful, loving. Her eyes seemed to sparkle as she spoke. Then I met Donald. I worked as a sales representative for a pharmaceutical company. And I'm still working, for that matter. He was a doctor. God, this man was amazing. It wasn't even about how handsome he was simply gorgeous. It was just him, his presence, the kindness in his voice, the way he carried himself, the way he could be so easily and simply smart, and then turn around and tell the stupidest joke. He was perhaps the best lover of my life, almost from the very beginning. In the top 10, and maybe even the top 5, best partners of all time. I was amazed on the spot in a way that even poor Jeremy had never been amazed. I fell in love with him so easily. That's why I pushed him away for so long. But he pursued me, and finally drove me away. But he didn't stop pursuing me. Looking back, I think that's why I was able to convince myself that this time everything would be fine, that he and I would work out. No man before or since has ever pursued me like Donald, and it didn't stop even after we became engaged or married. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to be pursued by anyone else. But you cheated on him. But yes, I cheated on him. She raised her glass, and the waitress came over to fill it. True. Only a few years after the wedding, he stopped pursuing me the way he used to. I don't blame him. It's impossible to maintain that intensity forever. And I loved him very much. I tried to hold on as long as possible. But I felt this little itch right in the back of my head, and I couldn't scratch it. He'd kiss me, ask me out to dinner or dance, and it was like... Amanda looked up at the ceiling. Do you know what methadone is? This is, for heroin addicts, right? To help them quit. Right. It is a weak opioid that mimics some of the effects of heroin, but is not addictive or dangerous. It's effective, but... She chuckled. You'd be surprised how many heroin addicts hate it, recover it or not. It is extremely close to what their body requires, but it is not enough. Once a person comes off methadone, unless he makes other serious changes in his life, the likelihood of relapse is quite high. Some people remain on it for the rest of their lives, replacing one addiction with another. In truth, this is what most recovering addicts do. They replace one habit with another. This is why there are so many heavy smokers and coffee drinkers at Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. Even celebrities with all their resources do it. Johnny Cash became immersed in religion. Robert Downey Jr. has become a fitness freak. Have you ever watched the movie Trainspotting? No? A great movie. I raised my hand. Sorry, but what are you getting at? I thought this was about... Amanda made a, yeah, I got it motion. We are talking about how I cheated, remaining unpunished. But first you have to understand why I did it. This will give you information on how I did it. Understand? The blank expression on my face showed that I didn't really understand. She sighed. You'll understand. So, methadone. Donald's affection after we got married a couple of years ago was like methadone for me. They were enough to keep me clean, but not nearly as much as I wanted. They scratched the itch, but did not get rid of it. And they were... God, in some ways, they were much worse. Another deep breath. A little less than 3 years of our marriage passed when I cheated on him for the first time. I was in a bar in another city visiting an old friend, and suddenly she became desirable to strangers again, free, and... She shook her head. And it was like giving a recovered alcoholic a bottle of vodka. I danced, flirted, knowing that this was a bad idea. One guy wanted me very much, just very strong. I could almost smell him, I let him groom me, knowing how dangerous it was, knowing how it could end, and hating myself for it. He groped me on the dance floor, and I let him. We found a dark corner, and he stuck his tongue down my throat. And then I went to the toilet and bought a cheap package of condoms from the vending machine. We snuck out the back door of the club into his apartment, and he took me in just about every way a man can take a woman. The only condition I made, the only concession of fidelity to my husband, was that we had to be separated by rubber. A few hours later, I stumbled back to my hotel room, exhausted, tired, euphoric, and... She frowned and sighed, and feeling worse than ever. Without taking off my dress, I climbed into the shower and cried under the running water for probably an hour, wanting to die before Donald met me. Amanda sat silently for a while, looking into her cup as if she could find the answers there. Without looking up, she continued her story. I thought about telling him everything, but I knew my husband. It would have killed him. He loved me very much, despite the fact that I told him about my past. Then I still didn't understand the depth of my need. I still thought that in my youth I was just a bastard and that I had finally found a man who would make an honest woman out of me. A good woman. Sad smile. And he did. Actually, I did. Just not good enough. She looked up at me. I drowned Donald in affection when I returned. However, I always did this because I loved him very much. It was easier that way. He didn't suspect anything, and I did everything possible so as not to feel guilty in front of him. After that, I kept my word of honor for some time. I lasted a few months, but the itching returned. In the end, I had to leave for work, and... Amanda shrugged. It was nice to believe that I could be a good person, at least for a while. That I just made a mistake. This went on for almost the rest of my life. I traveled a lot for work, so whenever I got the itch, I would find someone to sleep with. Never doing the same thing twice, whatever. Even in the same bar twice if it could be avoided. She always used protective equipment and took every possible precaution to avoid getting caught. And I never got caught. Never? I couldn't hide the doubt in my voice. I admit it wasn't easy a few times. At the very beginning, I made the mistake of getting involved with one idiot who tried to start our sex while I was talking to my husband. I hung up, kicked him out, and then called Donald back and said that the hotel phone had a bad connection. I never liked it when people said nasty things about him, but from then on, guys who disrespected him were taboo for me. She giggled when she saw the expression on my face. More than just disrespect. Well, you understand, it's always disrespectful. This I accept. I know he deserves a better wife. I just couldn't give it up. Amanda looked out the window. I was probably dependent in many ways. You always say that you are addicted. Although, to be honest, I had a hard time finding words that wouldn't anger her. Sounds like a bunch of crap? Yes, I know. And when it comes to something like this, it often is. When I was trying to improve in between infidelities, I went to a group to combat sex addiction. You know, it's like Alcoholics Anonymous, only for... She waved her hand. And while I discovered that I didn't quite fit the criteria, I also discovered that there were many who, let's just say they went there because someone caught them having sex with someone they shouldn't have, and sex addiction was an effective escape for them. Oh, honey, I know I cheated on you with your sister, but I found out that I have a sex addiction. Goats. But I know that I really have an addiction, or compulsion, and I can prove it. For now, let me tell you the rest of my story. She took another bite of the fried potato, then frowned and pushed the basket towards me. It's time for me to stop. An unexpected laugh escaped her lips. And this is what an addict says. Amanda leaned forward. So, one day, I almost got caught. And then there was a time... She swallowed. And then there was a time when some brat took me without my consent. Oh my God, the older woman shrugged. It was terrible. And I'm not making excuses for this guy. If I saw him today, I would shoot him. Because of him, I got a license to carry a concealed weapon. But I went to bars, invited unknown men to my room, and then told them that sex could only be with a condom and that I would not be on my knees. In the end, I came across someone who did not want to agree with this. I reached out to touch her hand. She smiled, then waved me off. It was a long time ago, even before children, more than 20 years ago. I remember being very upset at the time that I would have to hide all the evidence from Donald and keep him at a distance until I passed the test. How disgusting this is. But my husband, I had thrush until my period came, and by that time there was already enough time to get checked for almost everything. He didn't even blink an eye. He just wanted to make sure I was okay. There was a small chance that I had contracted one of the diseases with a longer incubation period, but they are not transmitted until they are active. I just had to constantly get tested, like a woman of easy virtue. But we dodged the bullet. I dodged the bullet. Suddenly a thought came to mind. You say that you have children. Is there any chance? No. Amanda's voice sounded louder than she apparently wanted, and several people looked in our direction. She lowered her voice again. No chancey. When we decided to have children, I refueled during the trip just before we wanted to start, and when we returned, I stopped taking the pills. Thank God Donald was damn courageous, and it only took us a month each time. She bit her lip. And yet I was worried. Knew that by all accounts the children, when they were born and all that, should be Donald's. But I was paranoid about this. I would definitely confess if one of them was not from him. I couldn't do anything else with him. So she arranged for all of us to be tested as part of a work-related genetic testing program that actually had nothing to do with work. Fortunately, the paranoia turned out to be just paranoia, and everything turned out to be okay. Did you cheat during pregnancy? No. This word was pronounced with a hint of artificial gaiety. At that time, Donald was very protective of me, so it was easier. Not easy, but easier. I was horny as hell, but it never... Like I said, it's not about sex, it's about desire. Sex is just the end. She grinned. I think Donald had a fetish for pregnancy because there was more sex during this period. Her dreamy, distant smile was clearly caused by pleasant memories. Those were such good times when I was pregnant, and then when the children were very small. I don't know why, but something about children. Maybe it was overwork, or maybe it was the fact that they just constantly needed me, but it was an even stronger replacement than Donald's love. For a while after my oldest was born, I thought that, I don't know if maybe having something bigger than myself or my marriage would finally fix me. That this is finally what will make me a worthy person. Amanda stared at her half-empty cup for a while. When she spoke again, her voice cracked slightly, but it was not so. She looked up at me, her increasingly insincere smile no longer hiding her pain. As soon as my son went to kindergarten, I felt that the itching began to return. And although it passed again after the birth of his daughter, that was all. For 6 of the 23 years of marriage, I was a faithful wife. What about the rest of the time? She shook her head. You said you tried to stop. She nodded, taking a deep breath and trying to pull the mask tighter over her face. Yes, I tried a bunch of ways. Therapy, of course. Sex addiction counseling, religion, athletics. God, how wrong I was. Have you seen how athletes look at even a moderately attractive woman? I even tried to gain weight, hoping that if I became less desirable, they would chase me less. I thought maybe it was a supply problem rather than a demand problem. But everything turned out wrong. It's just that less interesting men were now running after me, and I was dissatisfied in another way. I snorted, but I couldn't help it. This bit of fun seemed to lift her spirits. Briefly speaking, 10 years after marriage, I decided something for myself. Firstly, it is an addiction, even if there is no corresponding item in the mental disorder. This applies to many disorders for different reasons. Secondly, I can't control it, or at least I can't find a way to control it. And third, I need to find a way to stop him from ruining my life. I started reading a lot about harm reduction as a strategy. That is, do not try to give up the addiction, but limit the influence of addiction. I saw a news article that stuck out to me about a woman who was a successful businesswoman and mother, but lived with a heroin addiction for over 20 years. She managed to manage her addictions, and the only reason she was caught was a random raid while she was meeting with her dealer. She grinned. Not exactly a heroine for the ages, but I thought that if she could cope with this for decades, then so could I. And she did. Donald never found out. I don't think he even suspected. I was extremely careful. Did you have, well, I don't know. Did you plan any kind of ending? For example, what if you stay the same when you retire and can't travel as much? Not really. I just kept dancing and hoped the music would never end. I had a distant hope that menopause might change my brain chemistry enough to fix me, but it didn't. That's what addiction is. After all, it's just a matter of brain chemistry. There's a reason why for almost all addictions, smoking, drinking, you name it, the successful quit rate is around 5%. It's not that people don't want to quit, it's that they can't. In response to my incredulous look, she raised an eyebrow. Do you believe it? No, that's not the point, Amanda nodded toward someone at the other end of the diner and spoke quietly. That guy over there, he probably weighs 260 pounds, maybe 300. Do you think he wants this? Or does he not know how to lose weight? I guarantee he knows more about diets than you or I will ever know. And he eats a piece of pie, which I doubt he even likes. He sits alone in a diner, eating something he doesn't even want to cope with a hunger he can't and won't understand. Not real hunger, not the kind that comes from starvation, but because some small trickle of molecules in his brain just isn't enough to make him stop. This is true for anyone who is trying to quit smoking, drinking, or eating. It's me. Or at least, I was. Was it? She looked out the diner window again, her eyes wet. After Donald died, I went completely off the rails for a while. Without him in my life, the itch became much worse. I didn't realize how much his love and devotion helped me just function like a normal person. Less than a month after his funeral, I was already sitting in a bar and waiting for them to start pestering me. And every night for the next 6 months, I brought home someone new, sometimes not even one, but never in our bed. She sobbed and wiped her eyes. I couldn't do that. It was still our bed. Even when he was gone, I couldn't do that. I allowed myself to do other things. I stopped taking care of my health as I should have. I began to drink more. I was careless about safe sex, all such self-destructive actions. I wanted to die and be with him again. In the end, my friend persuaded me to go to the doctor, more precisely, to several. Of course, to a psychotherapist, and also to my therapist for an annual checkup. She discovered that I was pre-diabetic due to excess weight and lack of exercise. Prescribed a drug that was approved by the Food and Drug Administration. I got my weight back under control and out of the diabetes danger zone. She took a sip of her coffee. Oh, and he cured my addiction. What? Yes. At first I didn't understand this. That is, it did not help immediately. It took several weeks. But even after the first injection, the itching became less. And after the first 2 weeks, he simply disappeared. He just disappeared. I still had needs, sexual needs, but I didn't feel that mindless hunger. The bottomless pit was filled. At first, I chalked it up to my friend's intervention, to the fact that he brought me to my senses after Donald's death, therapy, and so on. But when did you finally receive a clean report from the doctor and stop giving injections? Lord, she sighed. I became slutty again like never before. And what were you doing? I was engaged in sales of pharmaceutical products, as I already said. I know all the tricks to get cheap drugs and easy prescriptions. So I started working on my own again, as soon as I realized what had happened. And, as before, the itching went away. A couple of months later, I began to read in magazines that this drug reduced the level of addictive and compulsive behavior among the test groups. Drinking, smoking, compulsive overeating. Tears glistened on her cheeks. Do you have any idea how painful this is? My love for my husband was not enough. My love for children was almost irrelevant. Hell, even my sense of self-preservation wasn't helping at all. Nope. I needed a weekly dose of medication to force myself to keep my legs closed. And it was already too late for it to matter. My Donald is gone, and I will never see him again. I almost threw away this damn medicine. I wanted to die. This time, I really wanted to. Death from debauchery. That would be damn nice to see on a death certificate. She shook her head. But I couldn't do that to my children. They had already lost one parent, and then my first granddaughter was born. I was not the wife my husband deserved, and I even failed as a parent, but she was going to be the best grandmother the world had ever seen. I laughed, and so did she, but only for a moment. Then she became deadly serious. That's my whole story. If you want, I can tell you how to cheat on your husband. It's not difficult. Any idiot can do it. It's not much harder to avoid getting caught, especially if you're only going to do it once. Go somewhere, pick up someone at a bar that's not your hotel bar, take them to a dingy hourly motel, and have sex. If you want to continue in the same spirit, find a job that requires travel. Follow the same rules I just said, but get a second phone. Make sure it comes from a separate credit card that your husband will never see. Be prepared to lie to his face. Always. Always have a lie ready. Always use condoms. Buy a gun like I did in case some asshole tries to rape you. Never trust anyone. Build yourself a second life that isolates you from those you love. Avoid real friendships. Never get drunk if you are not alone because God knows what you can give out. There is a lot more, but you already understand, right? I nodded, feeling slightly nauseous. Yes. If you cheat once, you will always cheat, is half nonsense and half true. Which one do you think applies to you? Maybe you can take advantage of some random guy at the bar and it will be a nice memory when you're old. Or maybe you'll do it more than just once. Do you want to play a game of chance to find out which one you are? No. I sighed. What should I do? Well, what about my girlfriends and Stan and everything else? She took a deep breath and let it out slowly. I cannot tell you. Clearly something is not quite right, and you need to work through it with him. Go to a consultation, go on a trip, buy whips and chains. I laughed. But whatever you do, throw those fucking friends of yours under the bus, at least for him. How much you tell him is up to you. Although I think you should be, completely honest. But put it all on them. I guarantee that he would rather blame it all on them than believe that you yourself came so close to it. And then, stay away from them. Change jobs if necessary. I nodded. Yes, come on. You're right. Thank you. You're welcome, Aaron. And good luck. Amanda stood up smiling and threw a 20 on the table. Now, if you don't mind, I'll go back to the bar to touch up my makeup and see if it's gotten any better since we left. It's been a few months now, and I still have needs. Grinning, she turned and walked out the door, then waved out the window as she passed by. I sat there for a while, eating cold French fries and thinking, God, how close did I come to becoming Amanda? I am not a traitor. I love my husband. What the hell was I thinking? Soon I got up and almost ran to my car. I needed to go home to my husband and confess everything. My vision blurred with tears as I drove, crying for myself and for the wonderful, broken woman who saved me from myself and from the so-called friends who wanted to drag me down with them. At home, Stan stood up from his chair when he saw the state I was in. God, how could I even think about hurting him? About hurting us? He hugged me and listened to me babble about what I had done, what I almost did, and about the old woman who intervened. His face became increasingly gloomy, but when he finally spoke, my husband's first words were, I love you. Thank you for telling me everything. I'm angry, but together, we will get through this. I sobbed in his arms as he carried me to our bed. We lay together as when we first fell in love with each other, alternating tender lovemaking with frantic, desperate intimacy. I needed him. I needed him more than anything, and he showed me the same passion. Never again will I let any of us forget this. After that, with the love of my life sleeping next to me, I lay awake for a long time. I'm not religious, but that night I needed to believe that Amanda's pain had a reason. I have someone to thank because her voice at the bar saved my marriage. I silently prayed for her, thanking God for sending her to me. I asked Him to watch over her and her family, and in the end, I asked Him to have mercy on her when the time came. May we all receive graces that we do not deserve. I received mine that evening.